Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Rising Stories podcast. I'm Corrine Sandifer, and I'm your host. Every week, I talk with either a small business owner or an entrepreneur and sometimes an author, and I ask those questions that we all want to ask. We chat about how to run a successful business and the highs and lows of what we do. It's my hope that you will learn something beneficial to your own business and that you will feel encouraged to press on. But before we go on, I want to share a recent comment from a listener. She says, if you are an entrepreneur or small business owner, this delightful and inspiring podcast needs to be on your newsfeed. Thanks so much from Meg Card 0514. Thanks, Meg. I really appreciate everyone leaving me comments, and it just helps the podcast just get some notoriety on iTunes and Stitcher. So go and leave a message, go leave me a comment, or if there's someone that you think needs to be on the show, message me about that. I would love to hear from you. I also want to thank our sponsor for this show, Transformation Media. My friends at Transformation Media create custom websites at different levels so you don't have to pay for more than you need. At Transformation Media, your business will receive an instant web presence without an instant cost. And if you tell them that you heard about them here, they'll give you 10% off your first month's package on a website. So get your 10% off by using the code Rising Stories. Today's guest is Jodi Vanderhoof. Jodi is a total businesswoman. I'm telling you, together her and her husband run 4 businesses. She is also on the Texas board of the NFIB. This is a very important organization that we all need to know about. Every business owner needs to know about this. Plus, we are talking about books and schooling our kids and summer and how she loves to go calendaring. Listen and find out her definition of calendaring. We're easing into this chat, so here's my conversation with Jodi. The fact that you serve on the Texas Leadership Board of the NFIB. And that really kind of like sparked my interest, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to talk to you. So tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Well, NFIB, a lot of people, you'll notice if you go into a lot of small businesses and maybe you haven't realized it's there, but you'll start to see it everywhere now. A lot of times on their front door or their front window, they'll just have a little sticker that says NFIB. And what that means is they're a membership of the National Federation of Independent Business.
Oh, okay.
And that is a small business organization. We have offices for nationwide in Washington, D.C., and then we have offices in multiple states. Some states have their own office and some are grouped together by region, but Texas has its own. And so we have what the NFIB does is it's just basically sort of like a trade association, how whatever type of business you're in, you might join, as a landscaper. We're members of Texas, Nursery and Landscape Association.
Mm-hmm.
Well, NFIB is an organization like that, but for all of small business across the board as a whole. And so the state organization will serve the businesses in that state and will advocate and lobby for small business friendly laws in Austin at the Capitol state level. And then our Washington office lobbies Congress to make sure that they're not passing laws that are harming small business and that they're keeping small business in mind when they're doing these things. And because most large industries have their own trade associations.
They do, yeah.
But for small business, sometimes small business kind of gets overlooked in favor of the larger organizations in those industries. Mm-hmm. And so NFIB just exists to make sure that there's a voice for small business in these places, in the state legislatures, in the Congress, and in Washington. And I really love being a part of that organization.
That's awesome. How did you get involved in that? I mean, how did you just like apply, or you knew about it, or?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. Several years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I'm not sure how long ago it was. The Texas Supreme Court had said the way Texas funds schools is illegal, court cases. They said the way you fund schools is illegal. You've got to find a new way of funding schools. And so the legislature came up with a payroll tax. And I was a member of NFIB already. And as a member, I get emails, and I get, at the time, faxes. I don't get so many faxes anymore, but I would get faxes and emails telling us what was going on. And so NFIB said, what do you think about this payroll tax? And for me, that would have been a real killer for our business.
Right.
So I just I had never really been big in advocacy. I've not been an activist before, but I just I started calling all my friends, and I was like, call this legislator and tell them you don't want the payroll tax.
That rustled your feathers. That was like,
even though they're not a business owner, I'm just like, we had actually a trade show in town, a home and garden show that we were exhibitors at. And I took flyers around to all the booths, the business owners. I was like, do you want a payroll tax? Increasing your payroll tax? And they're like, no. And I was like, you need to call.
Yeah.
And so NFIB was one of the only organizations that opposed that. And we killed it. I mean, even other business trade organizations were not opposing this. And it was a big deal. It was a very big fight in Austin. And, it didn't pass. And so we, over time, eventually they changed things to the margin tax that we have now. There are things that are good and bad about that. And NFIB has led the fight for the things that have improved about that law, because there were some things that were much more negative that, NFIB fought for over the years. You're never going to be perfectly happy with any kind of tax, but the payroll tax was a jobs killer. And so we were able to get rid of that. And so there was an NFIB luncheon in my area, and I went, and I was just talking to our statewide staff about how I was so glad that NFIB opposed that, and how, I told them about that I was talking to people and passing out flyers and making my friends call. And so they were just like, we need someone like you. These are the kind of people we look for on our leadership council, or people who realize that as hard as it is to be a business owner, and as easy as it is to get so inward focused on only what's going on with you and your business, because it's an enormous responsibility and weight, at some point, somebody has to look up and around and say, I have to look out, I have to at least spend a little bit of time paying attention to what are they doing in Austin?
Yeah.
What are they doing that can affect me? Because if we just go, oh, I don't have time to deal with that, they're going to get in your pocket one way or another if you're not paying attention. And so, it's not for everyone to be involved in as an activist, but it's, for some of us, it's definitely a passion to say, even if there's an issue that doesn't affect my business, perhaps, or my industry, it's important to me because I know what it's like to be a small business owner and to feel like, they're all out to get you sometimes. And
sometimes it feels that way. And, that reminds me, something happened in my industry. I'm a coach, a certified coach, and we have an organization. It's called the International Coaching Federation. International Coaching Federation has a chapter here in Nashville, and which is where I live. And so I'm a part of that, and I serve on that board. But a couple of years ago, we had like this bill that was about to pass in Tennessee that said that all coaches, even like business coaches and, performance coaches and just like, life coaches, all of them, all that profession was going to have to come under the umbrella of the psychologist and I think it was the psychologist, or it was some very high standard level of, that a different board, and that we were going to have to come up under them, which meant that we would have to go with their requirements of if they're practicing, but they've gone through, med school or whatever, or they've gone through all these, jumped through all these hoops and gotten certified in their field, we would have to do the exact same thing, even though I'm just a business coach. It's like, it wasn't like I wanted to practice, psychology or be a therapist or a counselor or anything like that. But that almost passed. And, it was people like you. I mean, someone obviously found it and let us know. And boy, we got on the phones and we were calling and we stopped it. We had them take that one little piece out. It's interesting how just like one little piece of things, can change the wording and all that can change things and be so, like affect a large group of people. And like you were saying with the small business owners, you were advocating for their for the tax and all that stuff, like you were saying, and that I commend you for doing that. That's so awesome. So, and you're a mom too, like, so tell me about like what you do, and do you have kids? Tell us about that.
Yes, I do. My husband and I have two daughters. 10 year, my daughter will turn 10 this like in a week and a half. So I
Okay, so we'll
guess
say
I
she's 10.
call her 10.
Yes.
A
Otherwise,
10
she'll be
year
like,
old,
I'm 10.
she would argue if I called her 9. A 10-year-old that's in fourth grade. And then I have a 4-year-old that is home with me some days and goes to preschool a couple of days a week. So she's at preschool today, but I also get some time with her at home.
Yeah.
And so
That
two
one-on-one
hilarious
time.
daughters,
Yeah.
and they're very vibrant and spunky and a lot of fun to be with. And then my husband and I basically kind of have 4 businesses between
Oh,
all of
wow.
what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We have a business that's a little hard to explain. We call it a landscaping business, but it's much more. As a matter of fact, my husband went to a conference not that long ago, and they said, "Don't sell yourself short and just call yourself a landscape contractor." Um, because many people picture landscapers as the guy who comes and mows your yard and plants your flowers, but we
Mm-hmm.
do a lot larger projects than that, a lot bigger, more what we call hardscaping, which is building things outside. We have a second company that is a pool installation company, and so we will install pools. But then our original landscape company, usually we might have a dual contract where one company does one part and one company does the other. But we have built pool houses. We've built
Wow.
pergolas and done concrete patios, and we build fences and decks and large structures that are
Mm-hmm.
just outdoor. We basically have the capability to build a house. We've just not built a house yet. So we're fairly general contractors, mainly focused on the outside, but we are doing a little bit more of light remodeling inside and things like that. And one day I'm sure my husband's going to start building houses because that's just
Yeah.
kind of how he is. He's always attack the next thing and
Mm-hmm.
conquer the next area, and things that start as something super tiny. We started with a beat up Chevy truck and a mower in the back of the truck and a chainsaw,
Wow.
and 15 years ago, and just has grown to a fleet of vehicles and multiple businesses. So we did, we started with lawns and
Mm-hmm.
added on landscaping and added on tree service and added on irrigation, and at one time had a retail nursery. We don't have that anymore. We didn't really like retail.
Mm-hmm.
um,
You have to
and
work really hard
started
with
doing,
retail.
yeah, and all our plant experts are out in the field. It's very hard to staff
Oh,
a nursery with knowledgeable people. And once
right.
we get knowledgeable people, we would want to man the field on the landscape jobs.
Yeah.
So it was hard to keep someone focused on just
I didn't
retail.
I didn't think about that because that's true. Like when I go to a nursery, I want to know, like, is this going to grow? Where do I need to plant it? Yeah,
Yes,
like
you
where?
cannot just hire anyone to work in a garden center or a nursery.
Yeah, I didn't
And
think about
my
that.
husband's
It's
a plant
true.
expert. I mean, he's very knowledgeable about plants. He loves learning about his industry, learning about plants. He's a plant nerd. We go places and he collects acorns and palm seeds, and I mean, he's just crazy. He loves that
Wow.
stuff.
What do they
But
call them? Like, is that like a horticulture?
horticulturalist, I mean, he's not,
Not
officially,
quite
but he's
that.
most definitely studied to that point. I mean, he's
Yeah.
very knowledgeable about his industry, very knowledgeable about plants, but he was never in the office, and so it's hard to hire someone who knows as much as he does
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
plants. And so retail wasn't our thing, but we added on, doing more hardscaping things. And then we started doing pools and decided to make that a separate company. Um, so we install gunite pools, which is the custom pools that can be any shape you want. They're not a
No
liner pool
way.
that's has to be the shape of the liner. Um, Gunite
Okay.
is like a form of concrete, sort of. It's a little bit different chemically, but
Is that the
you
kind you
basically,
blow on it?
yes, you basically dig a hole any shape you want and put in rebar and steel and then shoot the concrete into that shape. So yes, that's how they get pools shaped like guitars and Mickey Mouse. We've never done crazy shapes.
You haven't? What's the
not
craziest
that
shape?
crazy. Well, like people who want one like Mickey Mouse ears or,
Okay.
You see crazy ones on, Hollywood TV shows. I mean, we have nice ones that have different curves and rounded edges. And we've built one that had a grotto waterfall thing on it. I mean, they're very nice, custom. They're high-end pools. And so we build those. And kind of randomly, we own an RV park that that was a family acquisition.
That is so fascinating to me.
Unrelated, but yes, his grandmother owned the RV park, and it just kind of worked out to be a situation.
Like when you say RV park, that means like people come in and park their RVs, and they do you have a pool there? So it's kind of like a KOA, but not quite.
It's kind of like a KOA, and we don't have a pool currently. We haven't decided if we're going to do one there. Liability reasons. If it's not already there existing, it's hard to. Yeah, it's a little harder. Some of those are grandfathered in a lot of places. Some people with RV parks have filled theirs in because just the liability goes up and up over time. Yeah. So that's the thing. But yes, people can come in, and it's about 10, 15 miles away from where we live, and people can bring their RVs and come and stay there. And we actually have some people who pretty much kind of just stay there in their campers and live there all the time,
Do y'all not have, I think in Tennessee you have like a law, like you can't stay, you can only stay for like 30 days, I think. I had a friend who had an RV, and they were building a house, and so they stayed in their RV and camped out, like at an RV park, but they could only stay for like 30 days, and then they'd have to go to another one.
I don't know if in other states it's a state law. In here, our local Corps of Engineers and state parks places have rules like that where you can only
maybe that's what it was.
You've got to go. But for private enterprise,
you could just rent it. Yeah, you're renting it
out. And it's
out.
actually in a different state. We live on the state line of Texas and Arkansas. So all of our other businesses are in Texas. We live in Texas, but our RV park is actually in Arkansas.
Okay.
So we live in Texarkana, and that's kind of right. We actually call it the 4 states area. We're on the line of Texas and Arkansas, but the corner of Louisiana and the corner of Oklahoma are only about 20 miles in either direction.
I didn't know that. And I'm a Texan. So this is why I love Texarkana, is because when we're coming from Tennessee, when we cross over, it is just like, I just breathe a sigh of relief and go, I'm home. I just feel so like, it's just different. I know people don't realize what I'm saying. I mean, Texans do, I guess, but we're so proud of our state. But it's like, you just have this, you're like, oh yeah, I'm back, I'm back. And it's just so that's where we kind of like take that sigh of relief and go, we're back, we're home. And
and do you run immediately to Whataburger as soon as you
absolutely. Oh gosh, that one is it on State Line?
On State Line, yes.
Yep. That's the one. I mean, we've been going to that one for years. And there used to be a Chinese place down the road on the left on State Line that we used to stop. Like on our way out, if we didn't want to get Whataburger, we would stop at that Chinese place. But yeah, Whataburger. And then before we got Schlotzsky's, we would stop at a Schlotzsky's because we didn't have them here. We do now, but before we didn't have them. And so those were the 2 staples that we would go to for sure. Yeah, Whataburger.
Absolutely. So we have a lot going on. At one point, I actually homeschooled my other daughter. And so for a few years now, I've kind of taken a back seat at our office. I've always kind of been more in charge of the business end of the business. I told you earlier, people ask me the plant questions, and I'm like, I am not your girl. Like, you don't want my advice about how to care for plants because I can kill anything. I have killed ivy on numerous occasions, and ivy's impossible to kill, but I can do it. I am very accomplished in that. I married into this stuff. So I know a lot in my head. I know a lot of names of plants and things like that, but I don't know what are sun plants or shade. Some things I do, but I'm just not, I'm the business end. I've always kind of overseen the bookkeeping and things like that. I have a bookkeeper now, and I've kind of stepped away from being in the office as much. For a time, I homeschooled my older daughter, but now she is in school. I'm debating now whether I'm going to homeschool this little one, because she's still preschool for another year. She's just turned 4, so next year is another year of preschool before I have to decide if I'm going to homeschool her for kindergarten or send her to school. Just kind of depends on what fits with our family at the time. I'm homeschooling really fit. My husband works a lot of crazy hours, and so sometimes he could be home till 10 in the morning, and we were happy to all be home with him and not her be gone. And there was a period of time where she wouldn't have seen her dad very much if she was in school normal hours. But so, life changes in seasons, and so now, it's not quite the same for him. So she's able to go to school, and that fit with, the different things I'm doing. I am, have another business on my own with a network marketing wellness company. And so her being in school frees me up to be able to do some of those things. And, we'll just kind of see and take it as it comes every year of, what is God saying for a family now? What's the right thing? What do we want? We're very flexible about that. We're not tied to any one specific, type of thing.
How is your relationship with when you were in the business with your husband working? Was that a good situation? And then now you stepped away from it. Has your relationship changed, for the better, for the worse?
It's hard to say. I mean, I feel like we worked well together in a lot of ways. I mean, certainly we can butt heads for sure. But I feel like I played an important role in that, because he's a very strong personality, and it's hard for other people at times to oppose him. I think he's grown in that and his ability to receive feedback from other people. But at the time that I was in the business, I would have to kind of be that sandpaper sometimes of, well, I'm not sure we should do this, because everyone else is kind of like, whatever you say, you're the boss. And I'm like, no, hang on. Let's talk this through a little more. I'm always one to want to look at all sides of an issue and not just, hope that everything's going to work out great, but look at what all, what are the possibilities. And we've grown, a lot, and a lot has changed in our business through the years. As I said earlier, we've always tried to conquer something new and the next thing. And so, I feel like that it worked well. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always just perfectly sunshine, but I feel like we handled it well. I do think it is, everything is benefits and not benefits. Sometimes now he doesn't have me to back him up in something. And whereas things he used to could put on me, now he has to take on, because I'm just not there. And so there are things that sometimes he's like, I need your help. And I'm like, I'm kind of out of the loop a little bit. I don't know how I can help you with this. What you need is the help of the people around you who are there with you day to day. And there are still roles that I still take. I'm still heavily involved in preparing our taxes and, our quarterly reports and all of those things, but just the day-to-day things, like we had an insurance renewal last year, and those were things I used to always do. And he kind of did it without me, which is fine by me to, have him take on a little more administrative things, because it's important that he sees some of those things. I would, teach him, I had tried to tell him forever, you really, really need to, even if it costs more, hire, if you have a choice of 2 subcontractors on a job, if one has liability insurance, you need to hire that one, even if they're, you don't always go with the lowest bidder, because at the end of the year on your, liability audit, you're going to have to pick that up and pay, the difference if you don't have that, insurance certificate from your sub. So it's not always about the lowest bidder. And, there are just things like that filter through my brain. And over time, he's learned to do that himself. But there was a good long time when he was younger that he was just all about the field, and you just handle that other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for him, it's really made him a more well-rounded business person.
Yeah. It's grown him as a businessman.
He has grown a lot. Yeah. He doesn't have, me to be able to just handle a lot of things that I used to just handle, but there are other ways that I support him, and there are still business functions that I do and support, but there's a lot that I'm kind of out of. I've always been the software guru in the business, and anytime we installed a new software, I was like that person. And so that's hard for me to let go somewhat, because I'm just like, I'm very much a get in there and figure it out kind of person. And so now when if they have an issue on a software, that's a hard thing for me to let go of, because I usually would be the one to figure it all out and know the ins and outs, and they kind of have to do that themselves now. So it's, because I just can't, I can't be out of that every day and then kind of come back into it, because it's just too much to catch up. You just can't. So it's a different role, but I am happy to have had the time I've had with my girls.
Mm-hmm. You can't get that back, you just can't get some of those days back. And if you can do it, it's great to, I love that, with your homeschooling, like you were saying, the time that you had, like she probably wouldn't have been able to see her dad had she been going to school. So I feel like every year you take it once a year, year by year, on what you're going to do, either homeschool or put them in private or put them in public. And, depending on, because we homeschooled for a while, and we started because my husband traveled for a living. So he was a musician. So we thought, well, we'll just homeschool because she can just come along, which worked, beautifully for a while. And she ended up going to school, and that worked too. So, and I love how you were talking about didn't want to let go of your of that software stuff that you were doing, which reminded me when I sent you some information and some questions, which I do, and for my guests, and you said something, and I don't even know if I'm going to say this right, but calendaring. Is that right? Did I say it right?
Yes.
Calendaring.
Calendaring is an actual word in my vocabulary. It is a verb. And it is a very important verb to me.
What does that mean? I can guess.
I call it calendaring. Multiple times a year, not necessarily monthly, but multiple times a year, I just get a day, and usually I'm not even planning it in advance. It's just like, someone will send me, I'll get an email that says, okay, the date for our next meeting is such and such. If I sit down and start putting dates in my calendar, it's like something takes over me. I don't know what it is. I love having dates worked out on the calendar, because I hate conflicting events, and I hate not being able to do something because of a conflict. And so I am like a Nazi about having things on the calendar. And so one little thing will spark it. Something will come across that I'll have a date planned for something. And then I just sit down and I start making calls and checking websites and putting all the things for the next quarter or 4 or 5 months on my calendar as soon as they're released. We are huge football fans in this house. I'm actually a little bit more of a college football expert than my husband even. We're big Dallas Cowboys fans.
Oh, yes.
We have season tickets. We don't go to all the games. We sell some, but we do go to some. I went to TCU, and so we're big TCU Horned Frogs football
fans. They did well this year.
They have been doing great for a lot of years, and so we're so excited and so proud. So, like, the minute schedules get released and I start seeing people post on Facebook the schedules, I'm like, oh, wait, stop. I've got to. And my husband will laugh, because we have shared calendars on our Google calendars, and so he'll start getting all these alerts.
Oh,
and he's like,
goodness.
Oh Lord, my wife is calendaring again, because he gets all these alerts that all these events are being posted on his thing, because I have to go in and put the football schedules in, and I'll get one date and I'll start calling people and going, what are our dates for church camp for the kids? What are the dates for VBS? I need to put it on the calendar. Have the summer swim schedules been released? I know summer swim will be released in about a week. I'll start getting
the emails and stuff about it.
Yeah, I'll go on to the website and they'll start saying, what are all the weeks? And, based on what we've got going and vacations and whatever, what weeks am I going to put my kids in swim lessons and what weeks are they going to this? And so when is TCU homecoming in the fall? Yes. And does it coincide with a TCU football? Well, obviously it coincides with a TCU football game, but is there a home Cowboys game the same weekend? And can we make a trip?
Can you make it both to both? Saturday and Sunday.
I don't know.
That would be awesome.
It's a weird obsession. And I don't know. My friends will call me and like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm calendaring. And they're like, oh, happy day. Because they know it makes me happy.
Yeah.
To get all this figured out. It's just I'm very OCD about some things. And this is one of the things. Dates on the calendar are a weird thing for me.
When you shared that with me, I was like, yes, she's my girl. I love that. I don't think I'm not where you are, but it fascinates me that people can be that organized. And of course, you and I know, one of our favorite authors is Jen Hatmaker.
Yes.
And remember when she talked about how she and Brandon, her husband,
yes.
We know them first,
yes.
we're in first name basis.
First name basis. Yes.
Her and Brandon would sit together and how they planned the summer for their kids. Yes. And I was like, why don't I ever think about doing that? Like, I totally need to do that. And I try, but I just don't ever get to the end of the summer. Like, I kind of just throw the two things that I know are going to happen I just still have one child at home. So the two things that my kids are doing, I just put that in there. And then it's like, why don't I just keep carrying it out? And then why don't I go into the school year, which here the school year starts in August. And so my question is, do you have a 16-month calendar or do you have a year calendar? What does that look like?
Printed calendars are just a year, but I use my Google Calendar online because it syncs to my phone as well. So I kind of have to do things in two places.
Okay.
But the Google Calendar syncs to my phone. And I have some calendars that don't go to my husband's thing because stuff he doesn't care about, but I have some things that go on our shared family calendars and shared calendars for my kids. I have multiple calendars. They're color coded. It's a little bit obsessive. I'm sorry.
Oh my
I started that in college. I used to color code, class assignments and sorority things and this and that, and everything was in its own color in my one written planner way back when in college. So now my calendars on Google are color coded and they're each,
I've seen
Jason's
those color coded
and my
things.
Work and my Young Living stuff and my kids' calendar and our family stuff. And all of them are like separate calendars that each have their own color. So I can tell by the color of an event what it's related to. I'm sorry. I know.
I'm so cool.
Crazy. And as OCD as I am about these things, I'm very cluttered and very messy in some ways. Like, I'm not OCD about everything. Just certain things have to be exactly this way.
Certain things.
I love
your calendar
color coding, and I love my calendar.
Yeah.
And
so, yes. And I bet you are a great asset to moms that either are too busy that like either they don't do anything, they don't put anything on the calendar, they never know. Like sometimes I'm that. Well, I just don't know. Like I have to ask somebody, when is that banquet? When is the senior banquet? Or when is this? And so I'll call somebody that I know for sure has been doing some calendaring.
Knows what's going on.
Knows what's going on.
When the events are, I do. And yes, I do. And sometimes I call them. Like I have a really good friend and she homeschools. And so there are a few like homeschool things where there would be a registration deadline or whatever. And I would be like, you need to make sure that you do this because you're going to miss out. And she's like, I can always count on you. She still calls me for some things.
That's awesome. I think that's a great gift to have and to impart, and if you share it, you're sharing that with everybody. Cause like I said, some of us are not keeping up with anything. I started a business and doing this and it's like, things are slipping through the cracks. So, well, before we head out, I always ask, what is the best advice, business advice that you've ever gotten?
Well, I I don't know if it's really advice that I got, other than I had a salesman knock on my door, and he, of course, gave me his advice. But it's definitely my most shared advice that I tell other business owners now, is that I highly recommend that whatever business that you are involved in, that you become a member of a trade organization that's related to your industry, and that I also feel like it's so important for business owners to be members of NFIB. And I'm not paid by NFIB, but I am a business owner, and I know how much they've helped me. That has been the single most valuable thing for my business over the years. Because, sometimes you don't even know what laws you're supposed to be in compliance with, much less actually comply with them, and to know who to call and where to go. And like I said, we can be so inward focused on our own. And like, you need to be a part of your trade organization, because you're going to be getting emails and newsletters and communication that lets you know what's going on in your industry as a whole. And you need to be able to look up from your own business sometimes and see what's going on in your industry. And that's important. And then you can go to events and trade shows and network. And that can be a very powerful benefit to your company. But also, sometimes even the trade organizations can be inward focused and a little myopic, and only really tunnel visioned on their industry. And they can miss a slew of issues that they don't think are impacting their industry, but are definitely, like I said, NFIB was the only organization that was fighting that payroll tax. Well, every organization of every business, no business owner wanted an increase in payroll tax, but the trades just were not seeing it in that way, or for whatever reason, we're not opposing it. And so I feel like NFIB catches the broad spectrum. We track so many bills through, on a state level and at a national level. And there is just, NFIB nationwide was one of the lead plaintiffs in the lawsuit to fight against Obamacare, because we realized that forcing mandates on us for what they call affordable coverage, even if you're offering coverage to your employee, if it's not deemed affordable by the law, you can still have penalties on top of, there were so many things that it felt like this is going to definitely harm small business. And we've all seen it harm small business. So NFIB was one leading that. There are no other trade. The only plaintiffs were states and NFIB. There were no other trade organizations that were in that fight at the Supreme Court, which we unfortunately did not win, but we have had many, many victories at the Supreme Court for the national organization. NFIB goes to court and says, you can't do this, government. Your own laws say that you can't do this to small business. It's illegal, and you need to, follow what your own laws say. So these things are super important. And like I said, we can be tunnel vision on our own business. Our trade organizations can even be tunnel visioned on our own industries. But that's why I feel like membership in both is so key, because not everybody can do everything. Not everybody can go to their state capitol and testify. But if you have if you're a member of those organizations and you find out that there's something happening that would affect you, you have someone to contact, where you can contact that state organization and say, I'm willing to write a letter. I'm willing to testify if I need to. And you may take a day out of your business, but that one day could impact your business more than anything that you've done for 20 years. Because while you're focused inward, somebody out there is making laws that are affecting you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And so I am a very big advocate in people being a member and doing what they can, even if it's just a phone call every now and then. Just being a member gives you access to that information. You're receiving, updates and bulletins, and you're kind of finding out what's going on with as little work as possible. And you may just find every now and then that, hey, I've got time to make a phone call. I've got time to do something that you wouldn't have known about.
Yeah, and you can maybe even be a liaison between the NFIB and your trade, organization, which would be really good.
I highly recommend too that business owners, as kind of a handhold with that, try to go and meet your legislators if at
Mm-hmm.
all possible,
That's a
especially
really good
like
advice. Yeah.
state rep, because a lot of times the things that they pass that are harmful to small business, they don't even know. They're just not business owners and they don't realize the unintended
Mm-hmm.
consequences. So when you just meet them on a friendly conversation and have a little face-to-face chat, number one, you're humanizing your business, and when you contact them, they're much more likely to listen to you. And also sometimes they want to know. Sometimes they go, I wonder how this would impact a car dealer in my hometown. I wonder how this would impact a contractor in my hometown. And so you're a point of contact that they could contact you and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is coming up, and
Find out
I
about
don't
it.
know, it
Yeah.
sounds like a good idea, but is it? And then you're able to be a voice. So not everybody has a ton of time to participate in the process and be a major activist, but tiny little steps over time really do make a difference.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend that people just have a little bit of involvement in their organizations and their, NFIB for a small business organization, and just maybe trying to spend a little time getting to know legislators so that they can be that voice to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad to know about this. And, I honestly, I had not heard about it. I'd kind of heard about it, but I was not sure exactly what they did. So it was so good to kind of talk with you about that today and figure out what we need to do and what our responsibility is. And I'm so excited about that. And it makes me want to I'm going to just get on that bandwagon and go, y'all need to be a member. Y'all need to
Yes,
be
and
a
you'll start
member.
noticing the stickers in people's windows and their door. You kind of pass
Yeah.
by
Because
it, but now I
before,
always notice, and I go in and thank them. I tell them, I'm a
yeah.
member, and I am kind of an advocate with NFIB, and thank you for being a member because it's a great thing.
So, okay, what else? Let's talk about, I always ask, what things are you loving? What three things are you absolutely loving? Like, for me, I'm loving this one particular nail polish, and I'll post that later. But what are some three things that you're absolutely loving?
Okay, I am bananas obsessed with the Instant Pot, which
The
is
what?
the Instant Pot, which is an electric pressure cooker. So it's
What?
like a pressure cooker, but not dangerous, like the kind that grandma did on the stove and could blow up in your face and stuff like that. These are like electric. It sits on your counter and it
Okay.
cooks food super fast and super delicious. And
Is it huge? I mean, is
no,
it?
it's not huge. It's not huge. And there are many kinds, there are many brands, but the Instant Pot has a stainless steel liner, which I really like because I mentioned I have, am with a wellness company. I use essential oils from Young Living and I use them in my cooking. And so I don't want
Which?
to use something that
Yeah.
is reactive, with that.
Uh-huh.
So I want to make sure that like if I put, lemon oil in something,
Uh-huh.
stainless is a really good metal to use. Like you never want to put essential oils in something that's plastic because
So, yeah.
they literally like eat the toxins in the plastic, which is great, but
So
you don't put it in there.
what do
So
you cook in there? Like what?
I cook this. The thing is crazy. I cook everything. I made a cheesecake in it because it's like a water bath. When you bake
Okay.
a cheesecake, you need a water bath, and so it's hard to bake in the oven. It's great to bake in the Instant Pot. I made a whole chicken at Easter. You can make beans in 20 minutes that haven't even soaked. Like, it's
Wow.
crazy. It's wonderful. And
And
so,
which
I
brand
don't
do
know.
you?
I started having friends that did it. I just got mine on Amazon, and
Which
I
brand is
think
it?
they
Which
have them
one
at
is
Walmart.
it?
Instant Pot is the name of
It's
it.
called Instant Pot. I'm
It's
gonna
called the
go look
Instant
at that.
Pot.
I love
Oh my
Amazon, so I'm gonna.
gosh. I can add you to the Facebook community if you buy one. There's like 50,000 people in the Facebook community that
There's
share recipes of
seriously.
everything on God's green earth.
So
And
you're
it's
saying it's like a
so,
pressure cooker, but it's not like where it's
it's
dangerous, where it's gonna
yes,
explode. Because I don't
right,
use pressure cookers. I've heard people
right,
love pressure cookers, but I'm not buying one because I'm
right,
just afraid of the pressure
right.
cooker
I would
exploding.
never buy the old fashioned kind, but the electric ones are wonderful. You
Okay.
just, put
I'm gonna have
it
to check
needs a
that
little bit of
out.
water to help, that's what pressurizes it.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, but it's fantastic. You can cook so many things. And I mean, I have just been having a great time with it. You can cook frozen chicken breasts in it, like
Oh,
frozen
wow.
chicken breast, some sauce. I actually rescued freezer burnt chicken breasts. I Googled, can you possibly rescue freezer burnt chicken breasts? And basically the answer is you can. You just need a lot of moisture and a lot of flavor.
Moisture, yeah.
And so obviously with the pressure cooker you're using, I put like a cup of water, my frozen chicken breasts, and a jar of salsa in there. And they were done in like 6 minutes.
Wow.
Right. And then I shredded them, and I just made sure that if there were any tough pieces from freezer burn, I kind of pulled those out when I shredded it. Put it in a can of drained black beans, because it already had salsa.
Okay, it already had salsa.
In the sauce, and I just put in some black beans and made chicken tacos.
Okay, what's your number 2? That sounds delicious.
Oh my gosh, my number 2. Things that I'm loving. I don't know. I am loving several books by a lady named Leslie Vernick. She's like a Christian counselor, and she just has a lot of really good books. She has one about mother and daughter relationships. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot of different books about a lot of different, emotional issues, and learning to live with joy and having, she's just really, really neat. She has a lot of insight that I feel like is important, and I'm loving reading her blog and her books, and leslievernick.com and all her books.
I'll have to check that out.
I am loving her stuff. And let me think. I don't know. The other thing I'm really loving right now is I just created this little corner for myself that I'm sitting in my house. I've never really kind of had my own little place, if that makes any sense at all, in my house. And so I just created myself this little reading nook, and that's where I'm sitting right now. I got a bunch of stuff from Pier 1. I found this chair. I sat in over 150 chairs in my town, like everywhere, trying to find a chair that sat well and was the right shape and felt good. And I got a chair and an ottoman and a lamp table and a little chandelier light and all this stuff I got. And I'm just so, like, it's my happy place. So
that's great.
I don't know if that really answers your questions. It's not really something other people can really look up and go find, unless, I can send you links to everything I bought at Pier 1. But
I would love that. Yeah.
I have my diffuser right here, diffusing my essential oils on me. And I love it.
I just don't think, that's so cool.
Here's my little table.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't think that...
I know no one else can see that.
No one can see it, but I don't think that people understand how... I don't think we as women realize how important a little nook like that could be for us.
Yes.
Like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, that is so cool. Like, why don't I do that for myself? Why don't I?
It's taken me years, and I've been dreaming about this specific chair and stuff for months, and saving up and just figuring it out, because it's hard for us sometimes to do something for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I just finally was like, I need this space, for me, for comfort. I have a little desk and area, but it's just not comfortable. I sit there and I work, but it's not comfortable. And like, this is my little place where I just, meet with the Lord, and I read and I pray and I read for pleasure and I listen to music, and just sometimes I work on my computer here and sometimes at my desk, but I am loving my little place in my house that I just made. And it makes me very happy. I want to sit here all day.
Wow, loved all the information that Jodi shared with us today. Some really good tips for small business owners. All the links and all the information Jodi shared with us will be on the show notes on the website at CorrineSandifer.com. Also, don't forget to tell your friends about this podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe so you won't miss any future shows. I would love to connect with you on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me at Corrine Sandifer. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great story.